The level of playing in our face with geography, making us believe that we disconnected when all of the land masses are connected. We could walk around the world, y'all. Hold on. Before you be like, girl, you tweaking. I'm about to show y'all. And I'm gonna show you how it started because I realized that I was doing some research and then I realized like Alaska is attached to the United States. That's how it started. Because I know that growing up, I was not taught that. This was the map that I was taught. And if you went to school in the United States, this was probably what your maps looked like too. So I psychologically, mentally, subconsciously associated Alaska down here next to Hawaii, which we know is a set of floating islands in the water. Hell, I didn't even know what ocean that was as a child, but I always assumed that Alaska was right up there under California and under Arizona. But as I'm processing it, I'm like, okay, we see it here, we see it on this map, we see it everywhere. And subconsciously, we just see that and it just is, right? It's disconnected. But then I started thinking about, y'all remember Sarah Palin, who was running for president and she lived in Alaska, right? And she was like, I can see Russia from my house. And everybody was like, girl, what? You tweaking. So 2008, she said you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska, referring to the proximity of Alaska to Russia across the Bering Strait, which sparked mockery, because people did not realize that Alaska and Russia were right next to each other. Mind you, not just right next to each other, 2.5 miles apart. But y'all see this, 2.5 miles apart. And I read that when it freezes, you can actually walk across it. Again, the maps that I grew up with, it showed now when I think, okay, we got Alaska here and we got Russia here. So you telling me that furthest part of Alaska and this furthest part of Russia, they're touching each other. Okay, now I got to work my brain and make it make sense. Duh, girl, here we go. I found this on Encyclopedia Britannica, which shows the contiguous, it shows that, of course, Alaska is a part of the same landmass as North America, and then it is right next to Russia, but it is 2.5 miles away. This looks a lot greater than 2.5 miles apart. It looks a bit deceptive if you ask me, but that's just me. But looking at that and like being able to visually see it, and I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. But now I got curious about the Arctic Ocean and Greenland, which I've been hearing a lot about lately. And so I'm like, okay, let me see what this looks like a little U. They look real close. And then we got Finland and Sweden, which is Europe. It all looks super connected, but I'm sure it's super far away from each other, right? Let's see. First of all, Greenland is about 3 times the size of Texas. And Greenland is within 500 miles of the North Pole. Greenland is separated from Canada's Ellesmere Island to the north by 16 miles. So from my United States mathematics, it tells me if I was in a car going 60 miles an hour, I could be there in 16 minutes. I can't even get to work in 16 minutes, okay? Okay. So then we're going to talk about Europe, which is the nearest European country is Iceland, which is 200 miles away across the Denmark Strait to the southeast. Again, if I am in my car going 60 miles an hour, I could probably get there in about maybe 2.5 hours or something along those lines, between 2 and 3 hours. Very, very, very close, y'all. Very close. Again, this is about 2.5 minutes if I'm going 60 miles an hour. From here to here is about 16 minutes. And from here to here is about 2.5 hours. That ain't, okay. So me and Orion did some calculations and I seen that we can go from Canada to Greenland, Greenland to Iceland, Iceland to Scotland or Norway. The shortest gaps, Greenland to Iceland, 180 miles, which the Google said 200, still close, approximate. And then from Iceland to Europe is about 600 miles. Listen. All right, so that's 600 miles. And I'm like, it's so interesting that it's like a little, like Russia's right here. Europe's right here, Greenland's like in the middle, and then the North America is like right here. That is just intriguing. Because when you look at the map this way, we have Alaska way over here, the North America here, then we have Greenland here, and then we keep going across, you know what I'm saying? So yes, it's curved, it's curved. Okay, so technically Russia is like all the way wrapped around at the top right here because they're connected, right? You see where I'm going with this? So we can already see that from Russia back to Europe is very short little gaps, swimmable, you know, maybe a short little boat ride, but very, very close to each other, way closer than my brain would have ever conceptualized based off of my education. So now let's think about North Africa to Europe. Morocco to Spain is only 8.7 miles. 8.7 miles. 8.7 miles. That's it. That's very, very short. So what about Australia? Australia is geologically and historically connected to Asia. So we've already connected the North America, which we know is connected to South America through the Panama Canal. And then we have North America connected to Russia, which we know Russia is connected to Asia. And we know Asia is connected to Europe, and Europe is connected to Africa within a few short miles. But then we have Australia, which sits on its own tectonic plane, the Indo-Australian plate, but is closely linked to Southeast Asia. And during periods of lower sea levels, like the Ice Age, the connection was literally walkable, right? But it'll be like, oh, well, we already know that back in the day, all the planets were all close together. I mean, all the continents were all close together and blah, 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 blah. They still real close together. That's the point. Why we being sold this story that all of these land masses are separated and divided, right? When actuality, the Earth is not a set of islands. It is a single continuous body wrapped in oceans, borders, and projections meant to confuse and divide. Because you can literally walk from Cape Horn, Chile, all the way up through the Americas, across Alaska to Siberia, across the entire Asian continent, over to Europe, down to Africa, and back up again, y'all. Now, so y'all let me know that that y'all knew this, cause I would have never. So I continued my search. I'm gonna wrap this video up, but I continued to go down this loophole, and I got Antarctica. That's the only continent that we ain't talked about, right? I'm about to talk about Antarctica next.